From senseless deaths like these was the Black Lives Matter movement born. Every year, every month, brings new videos of black and brown bodies broken and dying at the hands of racist and police brutality. Every week, a Becky or a Karen slices away at essential human dignity. We watch people who look like us, who look like those we love, suffer in pain and fear, their final brutal moments reduced to a YouTube video or a clip on the 10 o'clock news. It eats the heart from your chest and steals the breath from your lungs and leaves in its wake one question: am I next? Will that be me someday? The young are the ones who pay the price for our inaction, our deliberations, and our prevarications. They cannot wait, so they act, and so should we all. To Arlington's Black alum, members of BSU, and all the youth activists in town, I want to say one thing to you. Own your voice. Never let anyone take it away from you or stifle it. Speak your truth, tell your stories, talk until we listen. Push us to remember who we were. We may be slow because we're old, but with your guidance, we can all get there together. It's my honor to introduce to you the Black alumni.
Hi everyone, my name is Jordana. I'm one of the BSU council members, and I just want to thank you all again for being here and coming out to support the Black Student Union of AHS. I just wanted to start by explaining to you how this BSU started. I was a freshman 3 years ago in 2017 and had noticed that there was no Black Student Union. And as we know in classrooms, there's not a lot of students of color. So it's kind of hard to speak your mind about racial issues in Arlington. So I kind of started the BSU along with other council members as a way for students of color to speak about issues they face and for non-students of color to educate themselves on our hardships. So thank you all for coming, and please enjoy the march. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Diara, and as Jordana stated, we are former council members of the Black Student Union, now the Black alum. We graduated. As Jordana said, thank you all for coming, thank you all for showing up and showing out. As Hannah stated earlier, we have various speakers who are going to share their experiences in Arlington, from students to alumni to community members. And I also have this piece I would like to share with you all. I want us to make sure that this is clear before we continue on with today's events. Our purpose of standing out here on this hot day is not to condemn or call out certain individuals or systems within Arlington Public Schools. Everyone and everything has room for growth. By standing here today, we want to address these issues and work towards something better, and in doing so, we need the help of all of you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Doralee Hertlu. I am part of the Black alum. I actually helped organize this protest, so I'm so happy to see all of you here today. So this past week has been pretty emotional, pretty stressful. But one thing that we wanted to make clear is that this is not a personal attack or an ambush on Arlington Public Schools. This is an attack on systemic racism, and this is not an ambush because we have been fighting this for years. It is time for us to have conversations and have action following it. We cannot have any more baseless conversations. We need to act. We need to move. We need to grow as a community, as a town, as a country, as the world. It is time to activate Arlington. So I want you guys to say it after me. Activate Arlington. Activate Arlington. Activate Arlington. I'm so glad that all of you here are today. We need to change. We need to make a better place for future generations to come. I have a younger sister. I have a younger brother. I do not want them to face the same issues, the same prejudice I have faced in my life. They deserve a better future. We need to do it for them. We need to do it for our youth. We need to do it for the other generations to come. It is time to move. It is time to activate Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Riccio. I am the lead Peace and Safety Guide for today. I want to start by thanking our amazing young Black leaders for making space for those of us who are white and those of us who are older to amplify their voices and center the attention that needs to be centered on the battle they are fighting today. That is why the safety guides are here today. We want to make sure that their voices are heard and that all of us are safe. So if I can just get to some boring details for a couple minutes, we're asking everybody to create a community of care, which begins with taking care of ourselves and taking care of everyone around us. We have to worry about COVID, and we have to worry about heat, and we have to worry about traffic. So in terms of distancing, I am so happy to see you all doing that. Please maintain that situational awareness. It does become more difficult when marches are moving. So please be careful when we get to bottlenecks, when we have to slow the crowd down to help people catch up, and when we're standing, the tendency to move forward. So please resist those temptations. During the march, we will be cutting behind the high school, and if any of you have been there, you know that the path gets narrow right by the football field. We don't want to be packing ourselves in there. So as we approach the back of the high school, please don't swarm the parking lot. Please try to stay in a reasonably wide group that can pass through the pathway there without backing up. That is where the greatest risk of transmission will be during the day. Also, as we are walking along, there are hills. We're going to try to take those slow. It's really hot. Breathing with masks on can be tricky. So please pace yourself and be aware of that. Hydrate, sunblock, hand sanitize as much as you can. If we are all keeping attention to ourselves and each other, we should be able to do this safely and focus the attention on where it needs to be, which is on these amazing young voices. Thank you. Stay safe. If anybody needs a mask, please see me or one of the organizers. We do ask that you keep your masks on and with you all day long. Thank you. Be safe.
This time I ask that you join me in singing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. that has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won. I have another song that I wrote, and in your mask, if you can't sing it, it has hand motions. Let me see your hands. When you go into a store or wherever you go, because people can't see your smiles, I have what are called hand smiles. So turn and give some people some hand smiles right now. How about some hand hugs right now? Lots of hand hugs for everybody. Wish I could hug you all. The day will come when we can. This song says, I'll go through all the motions first, then I'll go through the words. I am strong, I am smart, I am wise, I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you, you are me. We are one big family. If we work together, together we will rise. Several comments. I am you, you are me, we're one big. The whole family circle, it's not like this, because that can flip apart. Do you see that? Family is like this. You let nobody break this bond. Do you understand what I'm saying? I am you, you are me. We are one big family. Now all the bowing comes from Eastern tradition. The whole bowing is an act of respect. It says, I value you. I affirm you. I want to lift you up. So I'll go through the motions again. When I taught it to, I used to teach elementary school, when I taught it to the kids, it was, I am strong. They said, oh no, this is strong. So here are the motions again. I am strong. I am smart. I am wise. I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you. You are me. We are one big family. If we work together, together we will rise. I'll sing it for you. I am strong. I am smart. I am wise. I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you. You are me. We are one big family. If we work together, together we will rise. I am strong. I am smart. I am wise. I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you. You are me. We are one big family. If we work together, together we will rise. Guess what? We're going to go faster. I am strong. I am smart. I am wise. I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you. You are me. We are one big family. If we work together, together we will. Now we'll do the hand motions. am strong, I am smart, I am wise. I can see by the light of my inner eyes. I am you, you are me, we are one big family. If we work together, together we will rise. Thank you. The singers had asked me to sing a song. That last one took about all I had. But I'll try my best. Each of us has body, mind, and spirit. We feed our bodies with food and water. We feed our minds by learning and reading. We feed our spirits with what used to be called the humanities: music, art, poetry, drama. All those things that your dog can't do. Music for me leads us to a spiritual place that lies within each one of us. I'm here today to proclaim, first and foremost, that Black Lives Matter. As a spiritual rather than a religious person, there is a scripture that I ran into this week. It's Mark 1:15, 4 words. They are, the time has come. Yes. The time has come. And there are 4 things I want to mention today. Earlier this week, LGBTQ people were told they don't have to be discriminated against anymore in their place of employment. A little later this week, DACA recipients, at least for a moment, were told they don't have to be deported. Yesterday, we celebrated Juneteenth, the freedom of the slaves. And tomorrow, we will celebrate Father's Day. I lost my dad a while back, but he stands before you right now in me. I channel him whenever I play or sing. But today, yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today is the present, and it is a gift. Today is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. There is an eclipse tonight. And you stand here where? In Arlington, Massachusetts. Arlington? That's what I said when I got the call. Arlington? We stand in Arlington, Massachusetts. You are here to lend your support. You are here to stomp out systemic racism. You are here. And we thank you for being here. Give yourselves a hand for being here. This is a hard song. When I played We Shall Overcome, I didn't sing it because I thought it would make me cry. It didn't matter, I cried anyway. The time has come. I was born by the river in a little tent, but just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time a-coming, but I know a change has come. Oh, yes it has. It's been too hard living, but I'm not afraid to die, because I know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming. come. Oh, yes, it has. One day I went to my brother, and I said, brother, can you help me, please? He said, my sister, I'm not able. And when I looked around, I was right back down on my bended knees. There've been times when I thought I wouldn't last for long, but because of you seniors, I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change has come. Change has come. A change has come. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I got to watch on TV more black people in Washington than I had ever seen in my life in 1963 when I was 14 years old, when Dr. King was there. And I listened years later when they called it the I Have a Dream speech. It wasn't, it was a sermon. He stood up there and he preached like every preacher I heard on Sunday morning. He took a scripture, he moved back and forth, his voice went up, it went down, and that man preached in Washington, D.C. I was there. I was here in Massachusetts in '68 when they burned up Roxbury. I am 71 years old and proud of it. I've seen a lot. And what I see today says that I can die happy. Hallelujah. You are our hope, young people. And you make me proud. I'm proud today. Today. This next song, everybody knows this song. It says deep, 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 deep. Can you say deep? Deep down inside of you, there's a light, and that light is called love.
I'd like to introduce our next two speakers, Elijah and Nico. They organized a protest in Cambridge last weekend. They had thousands of people attending. and they're both part of the Cambridge chapter of the MBK, My Brother's Keeper, which is a mentor program for Black boys from throughout the school ages. So they're going to tell you a little bit about that.
It's a tough act to follow. Can we give it up one more time for that amazing singer and all of our student activists? So before I jump in, I just want to ask, I was driving through Arlington on Tuesday night. How many of you were out on the corner of Mass Ave holding signs? Make some noise. Amazing, amazing. I coached soccer in Winchester. I was driving through, and it was really, really something special to see that. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming back today. It's really, really, really special, and I'm glad we're able to keep the movement going. Before I kind of speak to the movement at large and what we did in Cambridge, I just want to say, I got a call, was it Monday night? This Sunday, we had our protest on Sunday. I got a call on Monday night from Hannah and from the BSU and her boss Mia, just to pick my brain. They saw what we did in Cambridge. They wanted to implement that here in Arlington, and within a couple hours, we're strategizing, helping them organize this today. So it's really, really special to see it come to fruition. One of the things that we talked a lot about in Cambridge was what it means to be an ally. And I think one of the, I'll save you some of the speech that I said in Cambridge because it doesn't necessarily apply here. But one of the points that I made was that there's a difference between being interested and being committed. So like I said, I coach soccer, I've played sports my whole life, and my coach used to always say, it's easy to be interested, right? It's hard to be committed. So showing up today, holding a sign, getting those honks, that's amazing. And that shows that you're interested in making change. But now the hard work begins. Now it's time to prove that you're committed and they're actually willing to stand up to systematic racism and make your city, your town, a better place. So I ask you guys. Yeah, definitely. I'll pose the question to you now. Are you interested or are you committed? We'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear it. So now I'll turn the mic over to my colleague Elijah, who will speak kind of more specifically about MBK and about the mentorship program in Cambridge. Obviously, each town, each city has its different ways of going about things, and perhaps MBK may be right for Arlington in the future, perhaps not. However, we do believe that a mentorship program is very important. It's a great way to keep the movement going and inspire the youth. So with that said, I'll pass the mic over to Elijah Booker.
One more time, I want you guys to give it up for yourselves for being in this hot weather and ready to stand up for something as important as it is. So I'm going to go a little bit into what MBK has done in the last month or so, and then more of a challenge for all of us here today. So MBK started around January, and we really picked up things in the movement around March when COVID obviously hit. And it was maybe 6 of us engaged on Zoom meetings, wanting to get parents involved of kids of color. And throughout constant Zoom meetings, we got parents to come in and voice their opinions, their displeasures, and what they wanted to see a change. So in all of this, what MBK has been able to do is just simply through engagement, through consistency, through stepping up and saying that you care and then putting actions to that. So I can see all of you guys today really care. So going forward, whatever mentor program that it's going to be, whether it's MBK, whether it's some other type of mentoring program, the first two things that I want is, I see all these youth here today, you guys have a voice. Don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to let your voices ring from, street to street in Arlington. I'm not as well versed in that. But don't be afraid to let your voices be heard. And everybody has said it, even with the Black Alum. It is the time for the youth to take charge. And it's already been time, but now is no more important time than the present to allow the youth to take charge, because they're sick of it, just like all of us, but they have the energy to combat all of this. With that, and future mentoring programs that we've had going forward, we've thought of a Saturday school, and we thought of different aspects to get youth engaged with whatever is going to work for your town. And you've already seen all the youth out here today. You guys can go and make an impact and a difference. It's just giving the youth the platform and the opportunity to make a difference. So for us, even me and Nico, we're 24, I feel like we're old individuals. So it's giving the 16, the 18, the 15, the 14, because they see everything that you guys see. They just don't have the voice and the platform to do so. So it's us lending our privilege, even me as an older adult and a man, and allowing everybody of the individuals in the community to voice their opinion, particularly women and those in the LGBTQ community who aren't heard as much, because their voices ring the loudest, as they should, and we need to elevate, motivate, and solidify and really respect their voices, because they're the ones that are making the impact. It's these black women here today that have been able to put on this protest. So let's give it up for them. Be up here too long. Just a couple words of active. So in Cambridge, I talked about leadership, I talked about accountability, and I talked about action. So we are all here leaders today. As much as we are in front of City Hall, Town Hall, you guys, each one of us are a leader here today if you guys made a decision to be here. So take upon that. Either if that's writing on Facebook, it's showing up to a march, but it's also getting engaged. It's if you don't have an understanding of something, it's having those conversations and breaking down. I don't want to say ignorance in a bad way, but we don't know everything, you know? So it's starting to engage in those conversations to know and fill in what you might not know to make sure that these things are covered. The second one is accountability. So posts are great, don't get me wrong, the signs are great, and everything in this moment today is fantastic. But we have to make sure this isn't a moment and this is a movement, that in a week to come, even if we're not here in front of Town Hall, we're doing something collective to make sure that systematic oppression is ended, because it can't just end with one moment today. And then finally, like I said, action. So making sure that there's action, making sure that we're showing up to town halls, that we're showing up and voicing our displeasure if we don't see something right in our community. You guys have the ability and the right to participate. The highest form of government is the people. And I'm not saying anything bad about government in itself, but if you guys want to see something change and you see a displeasure with systematic oppression, you guys have just allowed as voices as anybody in the city to make that change and impact. So just want you guys to think about that. And then finally, the two last words I'm going to say is engagement and consistency. So we need to be consistent in every action and moment that we do. So staying consistent, it doesn't have to be you guys are out here every day, day after day, but it's maybe staying engaged with some type of article that's written by a person of color. Maybe having a conversation with a person of color on a particular topic that you're not informed on. It's making sure that this isn't just a one-off thing, and that to actually end systemic oppression or whatever is going on in your city, your town, your district, is that it takes constant action day after day, and it doesn't come by the mere chance of just one day deciding to do it. It takes action, it takes hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. But as I see you guys all out here today, I know you guys are ready, I know you guys are motivated, and I know you guys can do it. So thank you guys, and have a good one.
Before we wrap up and turn the mic over to all of our great student activists, I just want to say, Elijah and I were inspired by the events that took place in Boston, and we implemented it in Cambridge. Since our protests in Cambridge, people have come to us from Watertown, from Arlington, who've then taken the movement and brought it to their town. All right, so the movement continues, and now I'll pose it to you. All right, it's now up to you guys to see that movement continue. Right, started in Boston and moved to Cambridge, now it's in Arlington. Let's see it in Lexington. Let's see it in Concord, right? Let's push it. Let's keep it going, all right? So that's your call to action. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. First, I want to tell everyone that I am a strong Black woman. Individual, but as a woman, it is easy to be silent. It is easy to have people push back and not listen to your voice. It is easy for that as a student as well. One thing I want to tell everyone here is that I am tired. I am tired of fighting the same fight. I am tired of repeating the same thing. I am only 18 years old, and I have seen death after death of my Black people. Trayvon Martin was 17 years old, just 1 year younger than me. Tamir Rice was 12 years old. This is an emotional moment for us, you know.
I'm tired
of fighting the same fight. I will never stop fighting. I will never stop fighting until they hear my voice. When I say protect the youth, I mean all of us. I mean those black and brown children who are getting shot and killed. I mean every single one of us. I mean the future generation to come. It is time for us to change. I do not want to cry anymore. I do not want to fight the same thing over and over again. I want to fight for change. I do not want to dwell on the past. I do not want to dwell on the pain and anger for over 400 years we have been facing. I'm here to reform Arlington Public Schools. I am here to reform the community. But I'm here for change because we are tired of seeing young black men and women get shot and killed. We are tired of them having to be isolated and not hearing their voice heard. It is hard. It is hard. But we will not stop fighting. We will keep on going. And I'm very glad that all of you guys are here today to support me. So I say to everyone here today, if you're going to say Black Lives Matter, you better mean it. You better show it, and you better prove it. Thank you.
Can we give her another round of applause? Thank you again, Dorley. I understand it can be hard, especially expressing ourselves. It can be hard, especially expressing ourselves when it feels like we can never really talk. That's why we've created the Black Student Union, because we felt that we needed this place and we needed somewhere that we could speak with each other and enact change. So I chose, Dorley, thank you for generally mentioning what we want, what we need to see in Arlington Public Schools, in Arlington, around the world. But I chose to address my testimony at Arlington Public Schools. Having attended Arlington Public Schools since the first grade, I've become accustomed to being the only black girl in my class. I attended Stratton Elementary School, and in my class of 44, I was the only black girl. I went to Odyssey Middle School, and then I became used to seeing other black people with the METCO program, and I began to understand more about my culture, more about where I came from. Attending the high school just magnified and amplified that feeling, the feeling of pride of being who I am, a black woman. Now, attending Arlington High School, Arlington schools in general has opened my eyes to a lot of things, and the main one being the need for change. The change in how we go about dealing with issues, and especially the change in how we deal with racism. The main thing that I believe is that it starts with the students. I look out here and I see countless Arlington alumni, and I see countless people I've shared classrooms with myself. When I think about some of those experiences, sitting in your classrooms and feeling as if I didn't belong because of looks, because of comments that were given to me, it's not fair. I've done the same things, I've taken the same classes, and to feel that I am less than all of you. I am not here to call out, to condemn, but I am here to raise awareness of what I went through and what I know these women went through. I understand that sometimes we slip into the mindset of kids just being kids, but it's time for us to take responsibility and hold each other accountable. I've had comments said to me in jest or blatantly racist that other students laughed at or teachers ignored. It's just, I want it to matter, and I want it to be that I can walk out and I can feel as comfortable as you all do. I want it to be that I can sit with my peers and I can hang out with those around me and I don't feel different. And I ask that, as Dorley said, if you see Black Lives Matter, please back it up. Please don't let this end today. Don't let this end with the post. Don't let us die out as a trend.
We're here because we think we matter, because we know we matter. We haven't mattered for over 400 years. We sit in your classrooms, we still don't matter. We go to the same schools, we still don't matter. We attend the same churches, everything, and we still don't matter. Show us that we matter. Show us that you care. I understand that while looking out in this audience, we have an outpouring of support solely based on the large numbers I see here. However, I just want us to continue to be active in this change. Arlington must become a town in which all feel welcome and all are accepted. Thank you.
Up next, we have Regina, a former member of the BSU.
Hello everyone, my name is Regina. Many of you might know me as Petty. I grew up in Arlington. I've been in Arlington since I was 7 years old. My dad had been in Arlington for the past 20 years, so Arlington's all I've ever known. This is what I sometimes call my home. First, when they asked me to do this speech, I was so excited until about 2 days ago, I was like, oh shoot, what am I gonna talk about? I wanted to talk about and tell my story what it means to be black in Arlington. I was part of Arlington Soccer Club. I played sports in high school. Throughout the Arlington Soccer Club, I was often the only black girl on my team. But I was also cheered on by many, many parents of my teammates cheering me on even though they didn't know me. My skin color didn't matter to them. I was also oftentimes the only black student of the student body. I was class vice president, and I was class vice president for actually 2 years, and I was the only black student. Throughout my years in Arlington, tirelessly I fought hard to not end up in the data. If you look into the public data that is showed by Arlington Public Schools, a lot of, I'm not sure how to put that. If you were to take some time and read the data that is provided out to the public, you can count every year how many black students took AP classes in your fingers. You can count how many students of color actually attend college. I want you to ask yourself, why is that? We have a medical program designed to give those students the opportunity. It was built to give students that may not have the same opportunity back in their home city the opportunity to go to college, the opportunity to get a better education. Today, I want you to ask yourself that, why don't they feel that they're receiving those opportunities? I also want to share that Arlington is coming together as a community today, and it makes me very happy to see everyone come together, whether it's for Black Lives Matter, whether it's for Relay for Life, or a couple years ago when we had school shooting. You guys always define what it means to be a community, and I'm proud to be from here and to represent this community as one. Last year, I took a leadership to Kenya, Africa, where I learned the power of the word Ubuntu. It means my soul is tied to yours and we come as one. And that's what I'm seeing here today, that everyone's coming together as one, no matter the color of your skin, no matter what you represent as, we all coming together to fight one fight, which is that black lives do matter. My life matters. Over the past years, I've done so many things in this town to show my support and to show my love. Whether it's Scoop Romania, whether it's hosting a school event, I've shown out to Arlington that I do feel as a community. But that's not the case for many black people in this town. And I just want to say thank you to everyone showing up today and showing what it means to be a community. And thank you for supporting Black Student Union. The Black Student Union started my junior year. It was something that I wanted to start freshman year. It took 2 years to finally get it started with my colleagues. 2 years of fighting the school system and saying that we need a Black Student Union. I remember my freshman year, it was just a group of students with the micro director at Arlington High School. We would host meetings after school discussing the racial issues that students of color face in Arlington. And then 2 years later came the Black Student Union. And I'm proud of this event that they hosted today, even though I graduated last year. And I can't wait to see where the Black Student Union of Arlington goes in the future and what do we do in the future. I want to close out with quoting the famous Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He stated, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." So I just want you to think about that. And thank you everyone for coming out today.
I just want to thank Regina for coming up here and just speaking out what happened to her during her time at the school. If we could just give it up for Regina just one more time. So our next speaker is Griffin. If you could just come up. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Griffin Gould. I've been a student in Arlington Public Schools my whole life. Been a political organizer for about 2.5 years. And today I wanted to share some principles from a Boston-based organization called Listening Works. Listening Works is a group that works to help organizations and workspaces foster anti-racist culture through compassionate communication. So this is how it's going to work. I want to ask everyone to find one other person in the crowd, face them, make eye contact with them. Maybe it's someone you know, someone you came with, someone you love. Maybe it's a stranger, someone you don't know at all. Cool. And so I'm just going to ask everyone to repeat after me. We are good people.
We are good people.
We were born into an oppressive society.
We were born into an oppressive society.
We witness and take part in oppressive systems every day.
We witness and take part in oppressive systems every day.
We have been hurt and confused by those systems.
We have been hurt and confused by those systems.
Together, with love and compassion, we can heal and unlearn.
Together, with love and compassion, we can heal and unlearn.
While we hold ourselves and each other accountable for the impacts of our actions.
While we hold ourselves accountable for the impact of our actions.
Thank you. So that's the end of that little experiment. But I just want to say that we're all on our own path out of that deep confusion that we learn towards liberation. And I want to invite everyone to meet others where they are, meet yourself where you are, meet ignorance and mistakes with absolute accountability and compassion. And keep showing up, keep reposting, keep educating yourselves and others, and keep taking the streets. Thank you.
I just want to thank Griffin for being a wonderful ally. Next up, we have one of my best friends, the first friend I had in Arlington, Lana.
Hi everyone, I recently graduated from Arlington High School, and first I want to thank the BSU council members for working so hard to organize this, and round of applause for them again. And to Dorley and Diara for being the incredible people that they are, and for their strength, and for those incredible speeches. I'm honored to be your friend. I've been a member of the BSU since it was founded 2 years ago. And as a white person, it has been a really important, eye-opening experience for me. I was able to listen to my black peers and learn about the struggles that they go through on a daily basis at our school because they're Black at a school that is predominantly white. I've been able to witness my Black peers unify and work together to try and educate and create a more equitable community for all of us. Although it may not seem like it, racism is very much present in Arlington. As I'm sure many of you learned in the past month from Mike Remy's video, in 2017, even though Black and Hispanic students made up only 13% of the school district, they made up 80% of all detentions, expulsions, and suspensions. During my 4 years at AHS, I have seen a number of my classmates of color receive harsher punishments and more strict discipline than fellow white students for the same offenses. In my AP US history class, I'd estimate we spent 2 to 3 class periods total learning about African American history. These are only a few examples of many of the ways that our school district continues to perpetuate racism. As a white person, I benefit from a country and system that was created to oppress non-white people, whether it is through redlining, the war on drugs, segregated neighborhoods, gentrification, etc. So if you're staying silent when innocent people are being murdered by the police, when Black people are disproportionately targeted and incarcerated, when Black students at my school are not treated the same way as white students, you're supporting the system. White silence is violence. White silence means agreeing with everything, all of that. If you aren't being actively anti-racist, you're willingly participating in a racist system. There are a million ways to be anti-racist. Vote for representatives in our town, in our state, in our country who will pass bills to defund the police, invest that money back into the community, to schools, hospitals, and housing. Keep showing up to protests, put up signs, donate, sign petitions, have those difficult conversations with your friends and family about race. Call out your classmates and even your teachers when you witness microaggressions that happen all the time in our school. There's so many resources and ways to be anti-racist that there really isn't any excuse for doing nothing. This is a time when white allyship and continued support is crucial. We need to keep this up till we see changes made. Recognize that as white students, we're complicit in the racism school administration has instituted. So next year, keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep donating. Join the BSU, it's open to everyone, or at least attend events that they organize throughout the year. Ask your history teachers to teach you about Black history. Do everything you can. Just make sure this movement keeps going. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. And next we will have Nia, a new council member for the BSU.
Hi, I'm Mia, but you knew that, I guess. I'm going to be part of the council next year, and I'm very proud to be a council member, and I'd like to thank the current council members for setting all of this up and for recommending me to lead BSU next year. So give it up for them. These protests that started a few weeks ago were all started by the death of George Floyd, who was killed senselessly by officers for no reason other than the color of his skin. Even when justice has been served for George Floyd, we can't stop, we will not stop fighting for the Black Lives Matter, because there are too many Black people who are scared to be the next George Floyd, to be the next Breonna Taylor, or to be the next Ahmaud Arbery. And I know a lot of you here will never have to experience the racism I experience. And I'm so relieved by that, you don't even understand, because that means you don't have to be scared that when you and your family are driving down the street and you get pulled over, that one of you won't make it home that day. 3 times in my lifetime while I've lived here in Arlington. You don't have to be scared that when you walk down the street and people are staring at you that they're gonna try and start something because of your skin color, even though you've lived here for most of your life. You don't have to confuse the talk that you've had at school since elementary school about reproduction with the talk that you had with your parents at home about how to confront the police if you get pulled over, how to talk to people who you don't know if they hurt you because of the color of your skin. You don't have to worry about being called out of your name because of your skin color, to worry that you're missing opportunities because of your skin color. This is something that as a black woman, I have to experience every day. It's something that I'm scared will happen to my father, to my mother, to both of my siblings, to any of my friends who aren't white. And it's something I live with no matter where I go. Because I can't change the color of my skin. I'm black and I'm proud of it. This change that I've seen in Arlington about supporting those who don't look like you can't end because we've brought justice for one person. Because it's bigger than one person. It's about every black person, every person of color that has to go through life as scared as I am. And I don't ever want to have that happen again. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Toro, our advisor for the BSU. One of the few teachers of color at AHS. We need some more representation matters, everyone. But anyways, so Toro, if you want to come up here.
I know you're going to adjust it. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right. Hello, everyone. For those of you who know me, my name is Kevin Toro. I work at the school here. It's my fourth year that I've been working here. I'm a transplant, so my story is going to focus on how I feel as an outsider throughout my life, but also in my time in Arlington. I don't have the deep history that a lot of the students have, although they've shared it with me. So, of course, my history being black starts where so many of the diaspora starts, with my ancestors being stolen off the west coast of Africa. My ancestors took a little bit of a shorter trip, if you'd like to call it that, and stopped in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico to be exact. So I consider myself not necessarily African American, but Afro-Latinx. Oh, thank you. So, what I always think about in regard to my black cousins from the mainland here is this deep and dark history. Oh yes, I'm a history teacher, everyone. I didn't tell you up front. I'm trying to trap you into it. But this deep and dark history when my ancestors landed on the shores of Puerto Rico and were forced to work. That history continues to the only relative that I really know, going as far back as my great-great-grandmother, who was a slave when she was younger. Puerto Rico didn't end slavery, because it was under the Spanish Empire still, until 1873. So we still have slavery relatively recent in our history, my family, as so many other of the diaspora do. That sets up what is clearly today the history of strong black women supporting us and keeping us alive and resilient, as you can see from the BSU members. That strong black woman, enslaved, had mixed babies. That was my great-grandmother, who is currently sick in Puerto Rico, unfortunately, due to the tragedies that have fallen the island and the tragedies that have fallen disproportionately black communities all around the world. There's something going around, multiple sicknesses, right? And so we have this long legacy from all the way from my great-great-grandmother and before, down to my great-grandmother, down to my grandmother who came over to the States, worked in Boston's garment districts to make a living to bring over her family from Puerto Rico. Because although we have citizenship as a place that has been colonized, we didn't have as many rights. Things like the testing of birth control happened on Puerto Rican women before any FDA regulations proved that it would work or was healthy. We are still dying just like our black cousins on the mainland. So we cut to the point where I come in. My mother, the strongest person I know, and the reason I'm alive today, raised me being accepting, but not necessarily with the knowledge, unfortunately, because she didn't have the education, that I was a strong black man. It was very unfortunate growing up, because I was told I wasn't black by a lot of people, even family members. And that hurt. As a multicultural person today, it hurts. Sometimes you feel like you have to choose. But I'm not choosing. All my ancestors are important to me. All my ancestors make me who I am. But it took a long time to get here. Around the time that I was in high school, that's why I feel for some of my students, I just had a breaking point. Depression started to set in. I did not know who I was. I didn't know what I stood for, who I should go to, who I could go to. And I lived in a place called Plant City, Florida. We moved around a lot because of my dad's occupation. It wasn't legal. So some of the first and some of the biggest memories of the police, for instance, are them breaking down my front door to come arrest my father. A man who got an 8th grade education because he had to drop out in order to help his family survive. And he wasn't a good person by all means. This is the only time I'll really sound like I'm standing up for him. But part of me, when you see the system in place, understands that he had to survive, and he chose. I had to find my own way to survive. And it took a lot. It took being called the N-word. It took being called a black honky at points because I spoke well. I don't know how to describe it to you all. But to explain that when the depression hit, it made me feel worthless. And I've been battling with that ever since it took a hold of me. And to be honest with you all, I was battling it even this week. With the death of George Floyd, the death of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, amongst other countless black youth and black people in general, black trans women are being slaughtered. Black people are being found hung from trees around the country and ruled as suicides.
That's right. That's right.
I was hopeless. So hopeless that about a week ago, some bad thoughts kept coming back. Familiar thoughts to me. I thought I was so worthless I wanted to kill myself. That's... Thank you. And I can say that today. I can say that because, just like my foremothers, the black women in my life have stood up. I got a text from Dora Lee. I was on a phone call with Dora Lee and Jordana, and Teshaniga, who's unfortunately not here. These black women saved me yet again. I got up out of my bed for the first time in weeks. I started talking to them. What can I do? What can I help? I forgot. People look up to me as a leader. How am I supposed to lead if I can't even walk out the door? This is my first time out of months. But I know today, that my life matters. And it's because all black lives matter. Fight. Resist. If you're a doctor, check on your black patients. Listen to their pain. If you're a teacher, listen to your black students tell their stories. No matter who you are, resist change. We need it. Lives depend on it. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for hanging in there, everyone. We know it's pretty hot out, like 91 degrees. First, I want to give a shout out to my mom over there. I see you. And I want to give a shout out to all the Black mothers out here today. Next up, we have Kiki, an alum from AHS. And after that, we have community residents from Arlington. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Awesome. So I first want to say thank you so much to the BSU for having me. Black women are so frequently putting in the work to making things like this happen. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that work. So let's give it up a round of applause for them. My name is Kiki Tapiro, and I want to acknowledge first that we're standing on what is ancestral and unceded Native land. I'm 24 years old, I'm a multiracial Latinx person, and I graduated from Arlington High School in 2013. I graduated from Brown University in 2017 and UC Berkeley Law School this year. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about history and performative allyship. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that growing up in Arlington, I do appreciate that a lot of people who live here try to be nice and often have good intentions. I'm lucky that I never experienced the stereotypical physical bullying in high school and that I live in a place that tries to be open-minded. Although there are some Trump supporter banners and Confederate flags scattered around, overall, this reputation is why I believe that Arlingtonians can do better. I am the oldest of three, and I learned from experience that every time I had a new teacher, I had to be on my very best behavior. If I did the same things that any kid would do, pass notes, go on my phone, chew gum, arrive late to homeroom, I was always noticed before the white kids. Many of us probably already know that students of color are far disproportionately disciplined in Arlington public schools. It's no wonder that so many kids try to give up on trying to prove themselves because it can seem like no matter what you do, teachers, coaches, and guidance counselors are only going to see the worst in you. Even being the good student I was, while I had many mentors, I also had many people telling me not to apply to top schools, and then when I did get into an Ivy League school, people only told me that I got in on affirmative action. The reality is that I got in despite having to deal with people like that for my whole life. People who saw a stereotype when they saw me. People who used me as a token friend of color. People who couldn't accept me as a complex person who is also POC. The best I got was that I was whitewashed. One of my own teachers in elementary school used me as a prop once when we were learning about the civil rights era, when she explained the bus seating system. She pointed at each of us, saying that we would be in the back or she would be in the front, and she pointed at me and said that I would be somewhere in the middle. Growing up in this majority white town, I never got to learn that being brown is beautiful. Racism for people of color is a constantly recurring trauma. In order to be a good ally, we first have to come to terms with the fact that the U.S. is fundamentally built on entrenching white supremacy. America's economy has been built to depend on a broad, underpaid labor force, and our very Constitution is designed to protect slave owners. And slavery didn't just end because of the goodness of Abraham Lincoln's heart. He found a politically viable alternative, which were the black codes. And even that change is only made possible by force and uncomfortability. Kind of a similar situation as we're in right now. The black codes then turned into Jim Crow era laws, not to mention that today the Boston area is more segregated than it was during the Jim Crow era because of wealth inequality from the generations of wealth white people made on the literal backs of the enslaved. Jim Crow era laws then turned into the war on drugs, which brings us today's age of mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, and the prison industrial complex. Prison labor has now effectively replaced slave labor. And now, even as the prison industrial complex is slowly dismantling, we're now moving towards a new era of GPS tracking. We have to stop reimagining these systems. This means that we have to do fundamental changes to the way our society is built, and it's going to be an uncomfortable experience because if we're doing it right, that means that white people will lose their privilege. In order to tackle systemic racism, each one of us needs to do our own part in changing our own industry. Systems are still driven by people. Being out here is a first step. We need to make sure that we propose policy changes, that every action we take is also uplifting Indigenous and Black folks and people of color. This means in the education systems, in the tech industry, in the health industry. This applies to each and every one of us. In Arlington, I especially hope that we get a new mascot that isn't Native American. And that we invest funds into the community so that we don't even need the Metco program anymore. We need to make sure that we don't have a double standard between our expressed politics and our actions. I would like you all to think about how many friends of color you have, if any at all, and how you treat them. Or maybe you've treated your children's or friends' partners if they're people of color. Maybe you can even directly ask them and be open to criticism. The solution is not being colorblind, but embracing our differences. We have to normalize that being wrong is okay, and that changing your mind can be good, and what's more important is learning from our mistakes. Learning is a lifelong process, and it applies to white people as much as it applies to people of color and activists. But I do believe that we can do it together. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nawaka Carey.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you so much to the BSU for organizing this and for inviting me today. As a resident of Arlington, I want to thank you for inspiring us and for leading us to change. I'm here to talk about juvenile justice. I've worked as an educator, attorney, policy advocate, and now a researcher, and I'm a parent of 3 kids in the Arlington Public Schools. I want to be very clear that communities of color and advocates have been talking about these issues for over a century. These are not new issues, but it is beyond past time that we address them, and I'll get to that in a bit. Let me start by pointing out that supposedly liberal bastion that it is, Massachusetts has some of the worst racial disparities in the country. In our educational achievement gaps, in the number of youth our child welfare system removes from their homes, in our system of mass incarceration, and in our juvenile justice system. Black and Latinx youth in Massachusetts are far, far more likely than their white peers to be stopped by the police, to be arrested by the police, to be charged in court, to be put in jail before they ever see a trial. They're more likely to be found delinquent, and they're more likely to be incarcerated and taken away from their parents. The research is very, very clear that these disparities do not exist because youth of color are committing more crime or are doing more risky behavior. No offense, teenagers, but all teenagers do really dumb stuff now and then, and my generation actually did far, far, far more dumb stuff than you all did. Good job. But these disparities exist because of the very real structural racism that exists and indeed is built into our justice system. Any data or academic geeks out there, if you want the data or the proof or the academic articles, I can set you up after this. So what is the consequence of these profound injustices? Tremendous harm and trauma for Black and brown people. Just experiencing a police stop without an arrest has a profoundly negative impact on a young person's school outcomes. Getting charged in court by itself significantly reduces the chance that a young person will ever graduate from high school. It contributes to massive anxiety and trauma among youth of color. And there's research showing a direct connection between disparate school discipline for youth of color and future disparate arrest rates. When school systems perpetuate structural racism within their walls, they directly contribute to the structural racism in our justice system. Let me be also very clear, youth of color are not the cause of structural racism. Structural racism was built by structural racism was built by and is perpetuated by white people, specifically white adults. We are the ones who made the system. Many of us work in it, and we are the ones who, for far too long, ignore or otherwise passively or actively allow it to continue to exist the way it is. You can cheer for ending it without cheering for that behavior. It does not have to be this way. We know about effective, incredibly positive ways to make our schools and communities safe without over-punishing, policing, or incarcerating. We've known about these options for decades, but nevertheless, our unjust system persists, and it is time to change it. Because if we are not working to change these systems, we are complicit in them. We own their racism and the harm that they are causing to our young people. So, there are many, many things that young people and communities of color have asked with regard to the justice system, and I'm not going to try to list them all right now, but I wanted to highlight a few that young people in Massachusetts are currently advocating for. The first is to require that the court system, the DAs, and the police keep and publish data about their racial impact, which I will add that the court has strenuously opposed for nearly 20 years. And allowing young people who have experienced the unjust burdens of the justice system to expunge their records so that these profoundly inequitable interactions don't follow them for the rest of their lives. So for the rest of their many, many proposals and their specific bill numbers, and many of them are before the legislature, so I'm just going to point you to a website with my former organization, with the Citizens for Juvenile Justice. So you can just Google CFJJ Racial Justice Action if you want to look them up. But I encourage you to take action. Thank you again for inviting me to speak. I'm working as a peace and safety guide today, so I'll be around if anyone wants to talk.
Our next speaker is Zane from the Mystic Valley chapter of the NAACP.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing out in the heat? One more round of applause for our wonderful Black Student Union students. They're amazing. Being here means the world to the students, means the world to the NAACP. There's so much more we can all do in society. So much more than just saying Black Lives Matter on Facebook or maybe putting like a black square on Instagram. You being here during coronavirus in the heat, 90 degrees in Boston, or Arlington specifically, is amazing. The NAACP stands with the Black Student Union in their push for racial equity in the Arlington public school system. We talk about like racial equity all the time. I know a lot of people are honestly sitting there saying, what does that entail? What does that mean? What it means is, for one, we need more black teachers in the Arlington public school system. We need to ensure black students do not get punished more for the same offenses, with suspensions, detentions, etc. We need to decolonize the history system. Yeah. We need to learn more about black history. Everyone should know more than just who Martin Luther King is and that slavery existed. It goes back so much more than that. Our school system needs to touch on who Marcus Garvey was, who Medgar Evers was, who other people was. The civil rights system in particular was bigger than Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. It was so many more individuals. And we get taught that like silencing movements is just assassinating Dr. King, assassinating Malcolm X. This is bigger than one person. Today, we don't need another Martin Luther King. We need everyone here. The movement will not die at one person. The movement has to continue on. The movement must continue on. I'm 30 years old. I'm a little between our 18-year-old students and our 70-year-olds. I've seen everything in the middle. I remember Rodney King getting beat up when I was young and asking questions, why is this happening? I remember Sean Bell when I was in high school, understand this is still happening, are we serious? This hasn't changed yet? I'm from a town in New Jersey that's not unlike Arlington. It was a pretty nice town. Some would say it's wealthy. That being said, a lot of the black people in the town lived in something called the South End. And going to this high school, which was 30% black, which is pretty good for what one would see as a town such as like an Arlington or a Medford type of Massachusetts. But the South End had city busing. We had to get bus passes to go to that side of the town. But then the people in the more wealthy side of the town had school buses that went there. So little things like that. There's things going on in the school system that we don't understand. Guidance counselors, for example, as well. They need to push black students. They need to not undercut black students. I was told I graduated in 2008 with about 600 people. I graduated maybe top 10% of my class. I took 10 different AP exams. I was told by my guidance counselor, why are you applying to Boston College? You're not going to go in there. You should go to these schools, the type of schools, where the C white students go to. These are the schools you should be applying to, not Boston College. So that has to stop. We need more black educators, more black administration. We need more black guidance counselors pushing black students. We need people understanding black students. The fight for racial equity is not solely just police brutality. Police brutality, obviously, is the most visual and gruesome form of racial oppression in America. It's at the forefront. The news loves it. Our favorite news media, CNN and such, they love the story. Let's understand. People that aren't black people can get murdered by the police as well, and that is not right either. Police brutality is always wrong. When people try to explain it, whether it's Rashard Brooks or whoever else, say, oh, you were resisting, you were doing this. The purpose of police officers was never to play judge, jury, and executioner and execute our people. We have courts, we have lawyers, we have judges, we have juries. That's not the role of the police. Going back to high schools, our students now, I'm sure, are angels. They don't do any of this, but I attended a lot of high school parties, there might have been some drinking, there might have been some things going on. Do we really need police officers being armed to break up high school parties? Is that really necessary with guns? Growing up in my town, I'm accustomed to, all the white kids, when the police come at the parties, they run. The black kids do not run. And who gets rounded up by the police and made an example of? The black kids. So things like that have to stop in the system. And racial oppression in America, it's just a result, police brutality of the greater system that's been happening for 300 to 400 years. Slavery goes back to, the Revolutionary War. It goes back pre the Civil War. It wasn't ended after the Civil War. Companies such as, the great bank Lehman Brothers was founded on trading cotton. The same bank that crashed our economy in 2007. Brooks Brothers was dressing, slave owners. So there's a lot of companies now that played a role in what's happening today in the Arlington school systems. What's happening when I apply to a job and I'm more qualified, better educated, went to a better school, then I end up reporting to someone white who's less educated to me, doesn't know the job. Why do you think this is? This stuff isn't happening by accident. And the push for equality isn't just stopping police brutality, which obviously we need to stop having our people killed in these streets. That is absolutely necessary. But the push for equality and fixing the rights of slavery and American apartheid and Jim Crow is more equity in the school systems, more equity in our workplace, more equity in the economy. Once again, the NAACP stands with the Arlington the Black Student Union, which I encourage everyone to join your Black student unions. Membership in black organizations is important. Membership in the Mystic Valley area branch of the NAACP is important. The NRA has so much clout because they have so many angry members. We need that many angry members. We need more than 250,000 national NAACP members. Let's get that to 20 million. If you truly care about black lives, we We can pass more laws, we can protect more black lives if we have more push and more political clout. So join your Black Student Union, join your NAACP, join Black Lives Matter, support it like being here at 90 Degrees today, support it monetarily, do what you can. Not everyone has to do the same thing, but any way you can fight for justice is well appreciated. We truly appreciate it. Let's keep the fight pushing for a better tomorrow than was yesterday. Activate Arlington.
I know we've said it before, but thank you all for sticking with us in the heat. We have 3 more community member speakers lined up for you. Next is Ben Moynihan.
Good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? All right. I'd like to thank Dora Lee and Hannah and the Black Student Union and the team that put this together here today. As I said, my name is Ben Moynihan, resident of Arlington. I'm pleased to share some ideas as part of the community voice component of today's Black Lives Matter program. We live in a beautiful area. As was noted earlier, we live on land of the Massachusetts people. We live on land that is, in effect, stolen land. We live a stone's throw from the Royale House and Slave Quarters Museum in Medford, site of the largest plantation enslaving Africans and African-American people in all of New England. The Royale family had sugar plantations in Antigua in the Caribbean, sugar that fueled the rum production in Medford, part of the Triangle trade that went to pay for the purchase of more enslaved people in Africa brought to work and build the economy in the Americas. We live alongside what is called the Battle Road of the American Revolution. We stand today along Massachusetts Avenue, a war framed for freedom from tyranny and oppression in which Europeans, Africans, and Native peoples fought both alongside and against each other. As you know, the greater Boston area today is one of the more diverse regions of the country, with folks from all over the world calling Arlington home. So in 2018, when the leadership of Arlington Public Schools stated that the school district would be working towards an increase in cultural competence, many of us were encouraged by that incremental goal. So, what does cultural competence mean? I think we need a community-wide conversation aimed at developing a shared meaning for this term, cultural competence. We need a collective conversation about the implications for cultural competence in what is taught and learned in all subject areas, from kindergarten through 12th grade, and about implications, as folks have already said, for hiring of teachers, school and district leaders, and professional development support for teachers and support for all students. I am the parent of a recently graduated 3rd grader at Brackett Elementary School, standing over there in the shade. And, for example, the state of Massachusetts Department of Education's 3rd grade history and social studies standards has as a major topic the question, how did the interactions of Native peoples, Europeans, and enslaved and free Africans shape the development of Massachusetts? That's a good question for 3rd grade classrooms to explore in an age-appropriate manner. It is also a good question for all of us who live in this land. I work with the Algebra Project, which is a national mathematics education organization founded by Bob Moses, a civil rights movement veteran and mathematics educator. The Algebra Project is part of an emerging national We the People Math Literacy for All alliance of schools, organizations, institutions, and communities. The Alliance believes that in the 21st century information economy, all K-12 students in America should be provided with the structured opportunities needed to graduate high school ready for college or career mathematics without remediation, so that math is not an obstacle to a choice of major or career, just like we would expect that reading and writing literacy not be an obstacle to continuing one's education and career opportunities. The project and the Alliance are built on the legacy of the Mississippi Theater of the Civil Rights Movement, which focused on the right to vote. You may know the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC as it was called, worked with local black people in the state of Mississippi, sharecroppers, day laborers, domestic workers, to enable them to register to vote, to establish freedom schools, and to form the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which at the 1964 Democratic National Convention challenged the Dixiecrats of Mississippi and in the nation. Their organizing work led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and perhaps is best symbolized by Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer at the National Democratic Convention, who questioned America for not giving all of our people the right to vote. Similarly, today, in the struggle for math literacy and a quality education as a constitutional right, we take the lessons of the Mississippi movement that it is crucial for the people living with the problem every day to be centrally involved in devising the solutions to the problem. Today, we are here together at an event organized by graduates and students of our schools. Young people and the teachers who teach them and the people who support students and teachers must all be at the table for the conversations about how to solve the problems we face in education. Maisha Moses of the Young People's Project notes that the students themselves are the greatest untapped resource available to bring about change in education. If you look at the tail side of a US penny, you know, our baseline currency, 1 cent, you'll see the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, or out of many, one. As we listen to each other and the stories told today, this interracial group gathered here today, let us have in our minds and hearts a question. How can we create this one out of many? Taking a page out of Bob Moses' book, how do we expand the notion of who is identified by the pronoun we in the preamble of the U.S. Constitution? And if you could read with me, that preamble opens with, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." So how do we approach this conversation differently? Instead of seeing these kinds of conversations as a zero-sum game where it's either I win and you lose, or you win and I lose, how do we approach this conversation with the goal of creating a win-win for all of the young people and for all of us? Such an approach is both possible and crucial to our mutual benefit. Today, we are grateful to the young people of Arlington for leading us in this important and sometimes challenging conversation. This is a conversation that ultimately can be both in our own enlightened self-interest and to the benefit of all of us who call Arlington home. Thank you very much.
We have one more speaker for you, Micaiah Healy, before the Black alum read their demands to Arlington public school system.
Hello, everybody. It's really great to see so many black and brown men in particular in Arlington, and just so many beautiful people. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for this honor of being able to speak in front of you. There's a quote that's been hanging around my head this past, actually since last night. If I could have done something, I would have. That's what evil depends upon. Good people being quiet. And this is said by Dr. William Lynn Weaver, describing an experience of his teammates' silence from a violent crowd. Today, I am very grateful that protests are happening and that people are done being quiet about the preciousness of black bodies, black souls, Black futures mattering fully. Not if only, not as long as. We matter fully, equally. And this is in the words of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie as she speaks about women. I am grateful that people are no longer accepting the things that they cannot change, but changing the things they cannot accept. Angela Davis. Folks, we have been mobilized. Change is happening. Change will continue to happen. And many of us are asking, how do you keep the day-to-day protest going inside of you? Well, I've learned that you have to pinpoint what exactly is disturbing you. You have to seek out the root of that disturbance or that problem. And then the hardest part is figuring out why it bothers you. Then you have to start asking questions, get curious, and then you'll be left with a few options for change. Either get inside the system, like I try to do, or organize from the outside, like what we're doing right here. I am here to share the wisdom of experience about how to not flame out as you do so. This world will try to snuff you out as fast as it can. And if it is not successful, self-doubt or self-exhaustion will get some good shots at you. But be of good courage. You are not alone. Even as you lead, you are not alone. You have followers. And when, as a leader, you carry a suffering that feels so private to you in the night, there are voices that have uncovered that private suffering, that exhaustion with their words. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Stacey Abrams, Trevor Noah, Michelle Obama, Frederick Douglass. These are the voices that are close to me these days. These voices comfort and encourage me in my own journey as a public leader. These voices confirm the truth of my convictions, and they remind me that I am not the first to feel the way that I do. So, fill your book carts and your podcast list with interviews of leaders. Skim those, read stories of their lives, or devour their whole life story in a sitting. My second piece of advice for not flaming out is to seek out and hold on to the living voices of wisdom and experience around us. Some are loud voices, some are quiet voices, but they are all brave voices. And their advice will ring the truth that is inside of you, and it will lead you. Whatever you do, seek out living mentors, older and peer mentors. People are eager to have you be their living legacy. My final word is to leaders and officials listening today, those that have influence and authority. And I'm going to repeat what has been told for many, many years, but may not be truly heard until today. Equitable representation matters. Hire and invest. Hire and invest. Hire and invest in the growth and leadership of people of color. We live in a world that systematically favors one group above the other, above the other. Proximity does not make one knowledgeable. Equitable representation matters. Black futures matter equally, not if only, not as long as. We matter equally, full stop.
Thank you, Micaiah. I know it's hot, everyone. Just bear with me. I'm going to be reading the demands. Now, these demands were created by various groups in affiliation with the BSU. The first is to distribute, I hope everyone is listening, please, thank you. Distribute equal funding across the school's PTOs, equal funding for all elementary students, no matter where they are located in Arlington, or the income level of the families that are served by those schools. Next, require courses at every APS level that explain to students the legacy of slavery, the history of indigenous peoples, discrimination, classism, sexism, the Black American experience from slavery to the White House, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and their ongoing impact on the lives of all of us today. Such courses will teach techniques to address racism, communication, and insights that will help in overcoming racism. Next. Next, measure and report out the community discipline data at all schools, including the elementary school level, not just limited to suspensions, but incorporating all student discipline, including students that participate in collaborative problem-solving initiatives. Next, provide yearly dedicated listening sessions for parents of kids of color. Next, develop a specialized mentorship program for lower-income students and students of color. Additionally, develop a specialized internship program for lower-income students and students of color. Next, update APS district-wide goals with a commitment to increase the representation of our faculty and staff of color to match the demographics of the student body, including measurable goals and a timeline of when these goals will be reached. Next, hire an APS diversity and inclusion coordinator. Additionally, fund an APS employee retention program developed with and for teachers of color. Next, offer biannual outside facilitated listening and sharing sessions for teachers and staff of color. Mandate annual bias interculture competencies training for all APS administrators, teachers and staff, school committee members, as well as the students. Increase family salary levels to qualify as economically disadvantaged in order to qualify for waivers, etc. Next, track and report how many students of color transfer out of APS each year. Develop a feedback and incident report portal that allows parents and students to anonymously report microaggressions and racially based interactions and have them documented. Next, create a subcommittee on Arlington Schools Committee, which deals with disparity gaps as well as diversity and inclusion issues, and have student representatives on that subcommittee. And lastly, replace Arlington's Native American mascot. And now we will be going on our march. So the march, because it is so sweltering out here, we will be going down Mass Ave, down Mill Street, down Millbrook Drive, around the back of the school, and coming to the front of the school. Thank you.